welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we are diving into a new series. Yes, the first series of the year. So, we're going to do the Silver Spoon series by Nicole French, and we're going to dive into book one. First Comes Love. We meet Francesca Zola, aka Frankie. So Frankie lives in the Bronx with her grandparents, which her and her siblings moved in to when she was a lot younger. Something must have happened with the parents. Hopefully they'll give us a little bit more information as we keep going. So for the past month, she has been in a hot and heavy, I don't want to say relationship, maybe we'll say situationship, with a man named Xavier Soto. Now, Xavier is half Japanese and he is also from London, so he's British as well. Our girl Frankie, she is Italian and Puerto Rican. And so they've spent this past month just banging away. Okay, that's the best way to put it. So he was in town for some interviews, but he's been blowing them off and they have been spending all their time together. She is in college. She is about to graduate and go on to graduate school. And when she met him, she was a virgin. So that cherry's been knocked loose. So she's getting ready to go out because it's now come to like his last couple days that he's going to be in town. And so they're going to see each other tonight. And so her sister Kate is helping her get ready. So Kate is moving out of the grandparents' home and she's going to open like her own consignment type of shop in Riverdale. So our girl Frankie, who's 23, she is kind of, you know how you have those people, they look good, but they don't think they look too good because they, we kind of think we kind of went over that in the last book, but they have another perception of what beauty is. And if they don't match that perception that they've put in their head, then they're not that attractive. Frankie, same issue with Frankie. And so Kate picks out this red dress and she looks good in it. She looks at herself. She's like, okay, she got to admit she does look good. So Kate goes and makes herself some leftover bolognese pasta. And so she's eating it and immediately our girl Frankie is sick. Rushes to the bathroom, throws up. So she has to literally tell Kate, oh, you got to get that away from me. That is just making me, ugh. And bolognese has never made this girl sick. So she immediately goes, I think I'm pregnant. So her sister's like, let me run to the bodega. Let me get you a pregnancy test just to make sure. But deep down, our girl Frankie already knew. She was like, she's pregnant. And she thought about all the stuff that she had taught going to Catholic school. And how, your boobs will feel sore and all this type of stuff. And she immediately starts feeling like everything. And so then she gets an email from Xavier. And it just stunned her into silence. The email said basically that he came to New York and he was hoping to stay for good when he met her because he felt like this was something real. Okay? And he just got the news that his fiance has a brain tumor and he can't leave her. She needs him now more than ever. So he's going back to London to help take care of her. Well, England, because it's, I want to say where he would go. It's of outside of London. So we're just going to say back to England. Okay. So poor girl. Okay. Now Kate's pissed, right? Which I think any sibling would be. And all Frankie can say is, I just have to let him go. At this point, her focus is going to be, I have to do whatever I can for my child because this is what it is. She knows she wants to keep the child. She's not going to fight him, not any blackmail to try and get him to, stay or any type of crap like that. She feels as if she tells him, that's being selfish because clearly his fiance needs him because she has this life threatening thing going on. So for her, it's a catch 22. And so she just decides to let him go, leave it at that. So now we fast forward 5 years after this, and we now switch to Xavier's POV. I love it. The Xavier now, 5 years later, is an extremely successful restaurateur. Like, he's an entrepreneur. Um, he has, I want to say, about 12 restaurants worldwide, and this is about to be a 13th he's about to open. He's gotten Michelin stars at his restaurant, so he's done like really well for himself. His father is an Englishman. His name is Rupert Parker. He passed away, and he now goes by Xavier Parker. So remember before he said his name, he was going by Xavier Sato. Sato was his mother's last name. That's the name he grew up with. But what he found is when he would go to banks, things like that, Parker opened up more doors for him. And so he started going by Xavier Parker. He did not have a great relationship with his father. So remember, his father was an Englishman, his mother was a Japanese cook, and he doesn't have any relationship with his father's family, even after the father's passed. So before the father passed, it was like always a dream to like have his father like walk into one of the restaurants and have some type of a good relationship with him. And once the dad passed, it was like, okay, if he doesn't do it, it would be nice if maybe someone in his family would come, just establish some form of a relationship. That hasn't happened either. So he is actually on his way to New York in a few hours because New York is a place that he has not conquered yet. So 5 years ago when he came, he was supposed to be scouting places for a new restaurant. But remember, he got tied up with our girl Frankie, who he only refers to her. He doesn't say Frankie. He says Francesca. That's it. That's what he calls her. And, he couldn't get enough of her. He fell head over heels. It was the best sex of his life, but it had to come to an end. He doesn't say if he still has a fiance now or not. We don't know if that was a real issue or if he just said that to get out of it. We don't know yet. Okay. So it sounds like if he was scouting restaurants, he wasn't no broke dude even back then. He had money even then. So that's probably why he was able to like brush it off, because it was like, I don't have to do this. This is like me choosing to. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more information about that. So he has hired a French chef at this current location in London. And this guy has already gotten a Michelin star on his own. He's great, but he's a pompous ass too. So they have this whole conflict. The guy threatens to quit, but he really can't quit because he's under a 3-year contract, and there's a clause in there. No, I'm sorry. He's under contract, but there is a clause within that contract that says for 3 years he can't go anywhere, basically. So he's kind of stuck. So our boy Xavier, he's on his way to New York, and he's all about business. He said that he's thought about reaching out over the years to Francesca, but it's just best that he didn't. At this point, he doesn't have a heart anymore. Whatever little heart he had back then does not exist. And, when it comes to women, he's like, they're a dime a dozen. He can get any of them right now. So he's not going to try and pursue her. So we switch back to Frankie. We're now in the present, 5 years after. She is a school teacher. She teaches 8-year-olds. And she had wanted to go into the graduate program, English literature. and she wanted to become a professor, actually live in London, to be honest with you. And that's not her life. Okay. So she had the kid, and she got to pay bills. So she winds up moving in with one of her siblings. So there's six of them, of her siblings. And they moved in with the grandmother when their dad died in a car accident. Their mother apparently had chosen the bottle over raising them. So that's when they went to live with the grandparents. And so then we got that little backstory. So she currently lives with her brother. His name is Matthew, but you might hear me say Maddie because they call him Maddie. Okay. Um, he bought a place in Red Hook, which is a nice, affluent place. It's expensive. It's. I guess it costs to live there, but the type of place that he bought was a fixer upper, which is why he was able to buy it in that area. And so he's been doing some things to upgrade it and stuff like that. Now Matthew rents out the bottom. There's like it's 3 floors, the house. And so the basement, which is like the third floor, that one, he rents that out to help with the mortgage because he is currently on administrative leave because he fessed up to this relationship that he wasn't supposed to be having with a woman, Nina, and Nina's married. I can't remember if like her husband, if that was his boss. I'm not sure. But he was, yeah. However, he got put on administrative leave because of this relationship. And so he's been picking up like bartending shifts and things like that. He's a military dude as well. He was in the Marines. And that's what he's been doing. But he's been in a funk, a total funk. And she loves her family. She knows her family loves her, but she also doesn't like feeling like a burden. And we find out that the kid is that she had, her name's Sophia. She is the spitting image of Xavier. She too has thought about reaching out, even attempted to, but she said the email was sent back to her, and she didn't have his phone number anymore because she blocked and then she deleted the number after everything happened. So she hasn't really had a way to get in contact with him. But she also admits that she didn't try that hard either. There's a guy at the school, he's an art teacher, his name's Adam Klein. He really likes her. He's always asking her out, but she never says yes. All the other teachers like that are single, they like him. They have made bets about trying to bang this guy before the end of the year, okay? And but she just doesn't see it. So again, her focus is honestly just on her kid, and that's it. When she finally gets home that night, her and Maddie have it out a little bit. He's going to a party because he still is friends with Nina's cousins. They're still cool. And she knows that the only reason why he's going to this party is in hopes of seeing Nina. He tells her no, that, Eric DeFries and his wife, I forget her name, they're his friends and he's going to have a night out because he needs it. And he tells her she's coming too. Kate's going to come over and she's going to bring them dress options. So she brings him a tux and she's going to uh, bring her a great option as well. Because these are rich folks and this is going to be a high end event. Now, the child, Sophia, she is named after their two things. Her grandmother, because her grandmother's name is Sophia, and her grandmother's favorite actress is Sophia Loren. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. So at first she tries to do the whole rah rah rah, she's not going, and then she starts thinking, even though she's not a gold digger, you know, she could tell that Xavier came for money. I would probably think that, and this is gonna be really asinine for me to say, but I'd probably think that with the whole British accent because it just gives that whole you know what I mean? It just gives. It really does. But anyway, um eventually she just caves because she knows, no, you're going, you might as well enjoy yourself, have fun. And so she finally agrees to go. Kate comes over with this cute tight black dress for her to wear, and they have a heart to heart, you know, and Kate kind of understands and knows that her sister has these insecurities, and she can tell that, you know, while Frankie's looking at herself in the mirror, she's feeling like a fraudster. And her sister is like, this is why you need to go, because you need to stop looking at yourself that like that. You look amazing, you know? And she's like, you deserve the good things in life. She's like, I get it. You had dreams before your kid came along. And it's okay to say that sometimes it hurts that you didn't get to do the things you wanted to do. You know, she's like, I know you wanted to become a professor. I know you wanted to live in London. I get that. But then the child came along and it derailed some stuff, you know? And Frankie feels like she shouldn't feel that way because she should be grateful that for what she has. And Katie's letting her know you can be grateful and it can still bother you sometimes that the dreams that you had for the most of your life you didn't accomplish them. They can exist in the same world, you know? So Frankie and Matthew, they go into New York City. Uh, I want to say near Central Park, Manhattan. That's where they are. And again, we're talking massive wealth, okay? Her brother fits right in. She told him that. She looked at him and she's like, you know, you belong here. And again, it starts to make her feel a little type of way because it's like it kind of, well, let me say it correctly. It kind of made her feel like, you know what? Me and him share the same DNA, and if he belongs here, I shouldn't feel so much like a fraud. I shouldn't. So they haven't seen Nina's ex, and again, she's pissy because she's like, I don't know what you want to see her for. She's the reason why you lost, you know, why you're on administrative leave now. Um, I kind of understand that, but at the same time, baby, if that's what he liked, that's what he liked. You can't do anything with that. If he can't let go of her, that's on him. You know, I doubt she wants anyone telling her about what she should have done, aka maybe you should have tried a little harder to tell old boy he had a kid. But anyway, I digress. She's looking around and there are, you know, priceless pieces of art on the wall. This really is another world. And then she hears Francesca and she knows automatically who that voice belonged to. This is the father of her child. And she's thinking, he does not belong here. Am I daydreaming? It can't be, but it's Xavier. She doesn't say anything at first. He says her name again, and she slowly turns around. Her brother Matthew is like looking like, what the hell? And she didn't want to say who he was because I'm assuming they don't know that he doesn't know about the kid, maybe. I'm not sure. They probably just think the guy's no good and just left her hanging or something like that. So, anyway, what she wants is kind of like pushing Matthew away and kind of saying like, don't be all in my business or whatever. So Matthew leaves and goes off because Matthew, again, we know Matthew, they're looking for Nina. She looks at him and it's wild because dude's finer than he was 5 years ago. She didn't even think that was possible. Okay. And he's remembering things about her, like, you know, how much she loves to read because she loves the old classics like the Jane Austens and stuff like that. She likes the classics. And he made a waitress comes up and gives him some champagne glasses, and she just keeps getting hers refilled. And another waitress comes by. She's got a big chest, and he calls her babe or something like that. It's flirty. She didn't like it, pissed her off, and it made her feel like you're not, she's not special and all this type of stuff. So anyway, he asked if they could go somewhere to get quiet to get reacquainted. She know he's trying to bang it out again, right? And she's like, she can't do that. She knows she needs to steer clear of him in that regard. It appears like she's gonna go with him, and then she's thinking like, no, I gotta get out of here. She turns away and she runs out of there because she's afraid she's drinking, right? Which means she's gonna slip up and she'll tell him the truth because he had got a bottle from the waitress so she got out of there. So she got down the street. He caught up to her. He grabs her. He's like, "Where are you going?" She's like, "I forgot I got someplace to be." He's like, "You're lying to me. I can tell because your fists are bald. You probably have fingernail indentations on your hand right now." That's wild. He remembers a lot about her. So they have their back and forth again. She eventually yells out about the email that he sent that last day. And she sees this regret or grief. She can't tell. But a bunch of stuff passes through her eyes. And I'm sorry, passes through his eyes. And he says, "Please let me explain." And she's like, "I don't even want to hear it." Like, she's like, "I don't want to deal with this." And so she went to run off again. He caught right back up with her. He's like, "Please just give me the opportunity to explain over dinner. I just got off the plane and all I had was champagne. Let me tell you everything over dinner." So she agrees to go ahead and at least have dinner to hear him out. We find out in her flashbacks that they told each other that they loved each other the last time they were together. That they were saying that to each other. So I'm like, dang, this makes it even more screwed up. So let's see what excuse he has. So they go to this bookstore because they were close to Columbia, where she used to come in this area a lot because she wanted to attend Columbia University. And then, of course, we know her plans change. He didn't want to go to the bookstore and eat. He wanted to go to some upscale restaurant that he was trying to poach some chef away from. But she puts her foot down and she's like, "No, this is where I want to go. If you don't want to, oh well. So he eventually concedes. They go in. We get a little backdrop, and we find out that his mother, she had him really young as well. And she was going to school. She loved to read, and um, she learned a lot of her English through her reading of different books. And I know that sounds like a oxymoron. She learned from books. But instead of like, the standard you learning it in school and stuff like that, she learned it on her own just through reading books. I get it. So her, she got knocked up by his father, and she had plans of going to school and stuff because she was an exchange student. And then she gets pregnant, and she apparently also wound up having a restaurant. I'm like, well, how the hell did she get a restaurant? But it sounds like he got his love of cooking from his mother. She passed away in a car accident when he was a teenager. So it does look like they have that trauma in common, since she lost her dad in car accident as well. Waitress comes over. She's flirting, of course, with old boy. She, of course, gets jealous. She winds up calling him Xavier. That was his nickname. And he told her that's what his mom used to call him. And I don't think he lets anyone call him that. So he calls her Chess, Francesca. So he calls her Chess. And he was trying to find out what happened with her. And she tells him, "Oh no, you're the one that needs to explain." And he's like, "You're right, and I will." All right, now we're still in Frankie's POV, but this is the story that we get from him. So his mom she's a student. She was a exchange student when she met his dad. His dad had some type of stature, and he would pay the mom each month, and that was how she was able to buy the restaurant. Because I was kind of wondering, like, where'd she get money from? So that's how she got that, from the dad. And also, I guess it sounded like at first it was like this lump sum, but then it would, you know, he would send stuff kind of maybe monthly or something like that to her, and the mom stacked that money up. And so when she passed, his dad kind of came along, and we find out he needed an heir because he didn't have one. So when he got of age, he already knew he wanted to be a chef, right? And he had spent some time in Japan with one of his family members because his mom was disowned by her Japanese family because she had gotten pregnant, not being married. And so the family, his Japanese family, they had a miso factory, and he worked there for a couple of years, and he also spread her ashes there. And he did it to the place where she wanted to for it to be done. So anyway, the dad kept hounding him about being his heir because he wanted him to go to proper school, wanted him to stop this whole culinary thing. But the culinary thing, that was the passion. So he did go to Dartmouth for a year, and he just did that pretty much as a, fuck you to the dad. He was like, I'm not going to school for 4 years. Like, he's a chef. Like, that's what he wants to do. That's who he is. And so the money that his mom left him, we find out, like, basically she wasn't spending that money that she was getting every month. Because you got to think, if she's, running a probably decent restaurant, she's making money. So all of that money, probably on whatever else she saved, that all went to him, and it was a pretty nice sum that allowed him to buy his first restaurant, you know? So I was like, shout out to the mom, looking out for the baby. We find out he also met the Queen of England. He got treated kind of funky, he says, because I guess since he's half Japanese, I guess. And then this is how Lucy, the fiance, came into the picture. So Lucy lived next door with her parents, and they became best friends. And the fathers were trying to push them together. And so they basically just said that they were engaged because they did that so she wouldn't have these different guys coming after her that clearly only wanted her money, because she was really, they were really wealthy. Now, she was a very sickly woman. And so when he came to New York and had his whole fling with the old girl, he felt like in that moment he thought it was love, right? And she's sitting there listening to the story, and she's starting to feel jealous, and she felt stupid, like, I'm jealous of a dead woman. But it's because there's a closeness that she clearly can hear, and when you want that with someone, I that's why she's feeling that. Okay. Well, what happened was they still weren't going to go through with the sham. They weren't going to do the wedding. He thought about doing it for her, but Lucy was like, no, we're not doing that. And she really did have stage 4 cancer, a tumor in her brain, and she lasted about 6 months, and then she passed away. So I'm sorry, Frankie's thinking about the fact that, he's got a kid in Brooklyn, you know, like, they have a whole kid together. He does have some family because he feels like he doesn't, but she's terrified to tell him. And then he snaps and he's like, what does someone have to do to get a drink around here, right? And then she's like, let's just go. There's a noodle place up the street and they serve drinks. Let's just go. You need more food than this, because he had gotten a salad, but he wasn't eating it. So for her, his response was not very good. Like the way he snapped at that woman, it just kind of did something to her. And we get a little backdrop on Frankie, and we find out that her mother is still alive. Okay, but they don't really have a lot of dealing with her. They go to the noodle place. He actually liked the noodles, but he doesn't know if he's hungry or if it's just the beer. But anyway, they have a little conversation about family. We find out her mother, Frankie's mother, was the one that was driving when the dad got killed in the car crash. So the dad had been drinking as well, but the mom was the one that was driving. So there's kind of like two sets of kids, I guess. So there's the first three kids that the parents had, and then they broke up, and then they had the last three. So her and Kate, they consider themselves the middle, both the middle kids. Kate's the last of the oldest kids. She's the first of the younger kids. And he made a comment after she told the story how, people shouldn't become parents if they're not up for it. And she's like, you're being judgy. So then one of those carriages comes by, and he's like, let's go do it. And she's like, that is like so not what a New Yorker would do. And he, of course, gave the guy like $100, and they went. So they go on the ride. They get to the plaza, which is where he's staying. He winds up begging her to come upstairs. She's wrestling with the thoughts about telling him about Sophia. He lets her know if all she wants to do is just talk, then that's what it is. He just wants to have this night with her. Now he does admit, he's like, don't get it twisted, I want to worship your body. Those were his words, not me saying that. He was like, but he'll just take her any way he can get her. So she goes up to his suite. He orders a filet mignon, best champagne there is. The butler's there, and his name's Martin. The butler goes to get the dish. They're talking. She's looking around. And again, she's back to that feeling of feeling like, I'm not good enough. I don't belong here. That whole thing. They wind up having a convo about not really knowing each other. So they start to play this little game about asking questions. She asked him what his favorite color was. And he said whatever that color is, that whatever shade of pink it is that your lips get when you bite into them. He asked her, how many men she's been with since the last time they were together. She's like, that's too personal. I'm like, he want to bang. Like, I don't know. I'm like, he's just getting down to the nitty gritty. So I'm not really shocked by the question. So she asked him if he's ever been in love, and he said no. And she immediately starts to think back to the fact of how they were telling each other they loved each other 5 years ago. And he said, at that time, I thought I did, but the only person I ever loved was my mother. I don't think I'm capable of it. And for her, that solidified that maybe she shouldn't say anything about Sophia to him, because, Sophia does ask questions about a father, and she wants love, and she doesn't want to put something in her life that's not going to love her back. So at this point, she tries to leave. He stops her. They kiss. She's getting swept up in the moment. And then she says, you know what? Can't do this. And she rips away from him, jumps in the elevator, and gets out. Now, I'm going to say this. If someone tells you that, I almost feel like she's looking for any type of an excuse to not tell him about the child. That's what I think it is. Or it's also a matter of, if he says, I'm not capable of love, that also sounds like you're not going to have him either. Right? Because you clearly fell in love. You clearly still are affected and have these feelings for him. And so to hear him say that, I think that was why she had that reaction. Because that to me, that doesn't mean, well, then I shouldn't tell you about this. I don't think that. Tell me if I'm wrong. Let me know down in the comments. All right, so the next morning she wakes up, and she's waking up to Sophia. Kate stayed over because when Kate saw her come home that night before, she went straight to her room and she could hear her crying, so she knew everything was not okay. Uh, so she's telling her sister Kate what happened. Kate saying, "I think you should tell him. I mean, he's not saying he can't love. He's not saying he can't love you. He's saying he doesn't think he can. You know." And if you look at all of the experience he's had, why wouldn't he think like that? Like, he's got some get ups, and it's understandable of why he does have those, you know? And she again says, I just don't want to put him in I don't want to put her in a position to meet him and then get disappointed. I just can't do that to her. And Kate was like, well, if he's loaded, maybe he can help you with the load, right? Because this has been a financial burden on you. And she was like, and you need to tell Maddie about what's going on. So she's saying she's not going to tell Maddie right now. And I was like, that's going to backfire. I already know because, secrets don't work. And she kind of got Kate to not tell everybody by saying, like, listen, I've kept your secrets. You went to Paris for a week in school, in high school, and you were with a boyfriend, and you said it was a school trip, and I still haven't told anyone. You had a girlfriend last year, because she's Kate sexually fluid, but she's like, I didn't tell anyone, because their mother's like a devout Catholic. So she's like, I didn't tell anyone. So Kate was like, fine, I won't say anything. It's your business, but just know I don't agree with your decision. Well, then there's a boom, boom, boom on the door. Sophia's like, there's someone at the door. It's probably Pete. So they thought it was going to be Pete. And of course, when she looks up, Frankie saw the silhouette and knew that was not Pete, honey. And so she tells Sophia, get away from the door. So she sends Sophia in the kitchen. Xavier's yelling, Francesca, open up. So finally she opens the door. And he's like, tell me who it is. She's like, what are you talking about? He's like, you have somebody. That's why you ran away the way you did. I want to see his face. He's ready to fight. And he's cussing and all of this stuff. And she's like, would you keep it down? I've got neighbors. And here comes little Miss Sophia saying, Mama, who's this man? Why are you yelling at my mama? And her features are like her father's. And the realization hits very quickly that this is his kid. And I'm like, oh shit. Kate comes, gets Sophia, and Frankie goes outside and talks to Xavier. They go for a walk. He's pissed. He's like, tell me why that child looks like my baby pictures. And she admits, because she's yours. And she's like, can we go get some coffee or something? He didn't want to, but eventually he went and they got coffee, some buttery treats and stuff. And they went for a walk and he's pissed. He's like, how could you not tell me? And she's like, how the hell was I supposed to find you? You're not even using the same name, so how am I supposed to know? And she told him she had tried to look for him, but nothing came up. And he was just pissed. And I can't knock him, right? And then when she starts hauling off about how, he broke her heart and just left her, I'm like, yeah, but I'm sorry, baby, this ain't about you. You fucked up. And she was like, what did she say? Something about, because he was like, when can I meet her? Like, really meet her? And she's like, I just don't let anyone meet my child. And, she has to get comfortable around you first. She's trying to be all firm on this. And she's like, if I allow you, and that did it. He says, okay, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. I'm not mad at him. She had a difficult pregnancy. The child came out 3 months early. Baby had to fight for its life. But here's the problem. He did not know. You did not tell him. Okay? You deleted his phone number, which means you could have went back to your old phone bills and you could have got that number and told him. Let's just be real. Now she says the email bounced back and maybe it did, but you should have tried harder because you had the information, he didn't. And now you're trying to tell him, I don't know if you're going to be allowed to meet her. You no, you don't get to pull those type of things with someone unless this person is a danger, right? Then you can pull that card. Where has he been a danger? He's pissed right now because he's finding out something that you've been keeping for him for 5 years. The baby's 4, right? But 5 years, you've known since that day he sent you that email. You have known you were pregnant, and yet you haven't done anything. So I'm not mad at him at all. Um, she tells him, just give me, he the way I feel he could have. I'm sorry, not he, she could have just said to him, give me a couple days, okay? Let me get her to the idea of meeting you, X, Y, and Z. That whole thing, if I decide, because you're trying to put your foot down, oh no, baby. You're trying to put your foot down because you got your feelings hurt because he told you he could never love anybody. That's what this is about. And that's the problem. When she started talking about, you broke my heart, I'm sorry, I don't give a fuck about that. This has nothing to do with the fact that he had a kid and you denied him access to it. That's what happened. Fuck your feelings. That's what happened. All right, so we switch to Xavier's POV. We fast forward about 2 days. He's back in London. He's meeting with Jagger. They call him Jag, his best friend, and also one of his business partners. And he's giving him the rundown of everything that happened in New York. Jag, of course, shocked. Okay, but also helps him kind of like chill out. Okay. And he's saying, listen, this child does not know you yet. The last thing, I know you're used to winning, okay? But this is not business. And you're thinking about it in the same way you think of businesses, which is conquering. That's not what this is. So chill out. It doesn't appear to be that she's a bad mom, does it? And he's like, no, she seems to love the child very much. She seems to be an excellent mom. He's like, I don't want to take the child away from her. It's just a matter of me being able to get to know the child. And Jack's like, I get that, right? But just give her a little time, okay, to get used to the idea on a way also of how to tell the child. So, well, now Xavier's like, I want to open up a restaurant in New York. And Jack is like, whoa, 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 whoa. What you mean? Like, we're supposed to be doing something else. And he's like, what about Paris? That was supposed to be the next stop. He's like, nah, next 6 months he's gonna be in New York. He wants to open up a restaurant there first, and he's gonna get to know his child. So it's been like over a month. Frankie hasn't heard anything from Xavier. She's been checking her phone 50 times a day because she's terrified, you know, that, he's going to say a lawyer's coming to take the baby or some shit. And Kate, her sister, said, you need to tell Maddie. I mean, Matt's a damn lawyer. And she's like, it's his downtime, all like these excuses. And she's like, I don't want to have to run to him every time I need help. But it's like, but this is what he does as a job. So it's like, why not ask? Like, you need help. That's just what it is. But she doesn't want to ask for help. So Matthew got a job as an interpreter. He's going to be going to Italy for like a month. And it is to be an interpreter for Nina, the girl that got it put on leave. And so at first, the family's not happy about it, but at the same time they've seen the funk that man has been in, and so finally everyone's like, he just needs to change the pace anyway. Like, let it be, just let him be. Adam, the art teacher, comes in, and this time he's a little bit more direct when he asks her out for a drink. So she winds up saying yes, and they're walking out. He puts his arm around her, and she then sees Xavier. Well, Xavier doesn't say anything. He just looks like he's about to, kill the other guy. So then they walk in another direction. They go to a little pub. Not pub. I'm saying pub because I'm thinking of Xavier being English. They go to this little bar, sports bar type place, and they serve margaritas. Margaritas, even though she's not a fan of margaritas, but she's thinking, "Oh my God, I'm tripping. I thought I saw him, and he's not even there." Then all of a sudden, she hears Francesca. So now she knows you ain't crazy. He was there. So Adam comes over, and it's a whole thing. Basically, Xavier lets him know we have some unfinished business we need to talk about. She tried to pass Xavier off as a friend. And I'm like, don't do that. You know? Like, what are you lying for? Like, you don't even like Adam. You don't need to tell him any of your business. Like, he had to keep asking you in order for you to even commit to this. So it's like, child, boo. So, anyway, Xavier says, sorry for interrupting your date. Adam looks pissed. Eventually, she made Xavier wait for her outside. The Adam dude is like, did he go to Eton? And she's like, I don't know. I know he moved around a lot when he was younger. He's like, I think he did. Because Adam's dad he was some high up in something. So he traveled a lot in Europe. So he went there. So he kind of was like, thinks he knows him. So she tells him thanks again. And as she's heading out, the guy, Adam, was like, rain check for another day. So she comes outside. He's pacing back and forth on the sidewalk. She took a little longer to leave out just to make him feel like hell. And she feels like hell. He made her wait a whole month. No phone call, no nothing. And she's been paranoid, thinking lawyers are going to, take down, take down her door and take the baby. So she brought up the fact that he hadn't called her and how it made her feel. And he said, I needed to cool off. Okay? And she makes a comment, I can't take a month off because I have a 4-year old that I have to take care of. And she saw something go across his face, looked a little like fear, maybe a little anger. And he asked if they could go and just talk about everything. No lawyers. No, I'm sorry. She said no lawyers. He said no lawyers, not yet, just to talk. And she said, okay, fine. So they walk, and he basically wanted to know how it all happened. Like from the time she found out she was pregnant, like everything. And she just kind of went through it. And I mean, we already know what happened. So he wants to know if he should meet the family first. She's like, no, because they're going to rip you apart. You know, they all know about you to different degrees. Um, but with what they know, it's gonna be one sided, right? He's the dude that broke her heart and left her with a baby, right? So as they're walking, they walk until they get to Sophia's preschool, and she said, "Okay, so this is where I leave." He's like, "I thought you had more time." She said, "I only had 20 minutes, and if I don't get in there, they'll start charging me an arm and a leg." And he was like, "I'm not gonna just go away and not have my kid in my life. Like I've lost a lot of time." And she basically begged him, don't have lawyers come in and snatch her away from the only family that she knows that's going to traumatize her. Just give me some time to get her used to understand, you know, what's going on and how this is going to work, if you really want to be a parent. And he agreed, but he was like, this weekend we're going out to dinner to iron out all this stuff. And he's like, where's something nice because I'm picking the place. And I'm just like, that's all you had to say in the first place. But anyway, I digress. So it's Sunday. She's having dinner tonight with Xavier. She's at her nana's house, and her nana cooked dinner. and her siblings are there except for Matthew, because Matt's, he's in Italy. And she got a lot of them, child. There's like Joni, Leah, those are the two youngest ones. Their trip, and they're like maybe a year apart. Totally different. One's like bookwormish, the other's a little wild child. She's a go-go dancer. Mar- mm. Leah is the oldest, I think, and she has a kid. I think she's got a couple, and she works at some place like a country club, and she got a promotion. She's gonna be assistant to the head chef, and hopefully in 2 years they're thinking about sending her to the Cordon Bleu. So I'm like, that's pretty cool. And Frankie felt the little ting of jealousy because it's like, remember, she wanted to see the world, and now it's like her sister might get to do that or whatever. But anyway, her sisters want to know why they gotta watch the kid. Like, what's going on? She says it was a girls' night and they've been planning for a long time. But see, when she babbles, her family knows she's lying. But thankfully, there was a knock on the door. But unfortunately, it was their mother. So their mother's name is Guadalupe. She's Puerto Rican, and she's actually from Puerto Rico. She was born there. So Joni and Marie, maybe Leah, the oldest, they have been trying to kind of deal with the mom. The mom claims she's been clean for 2 years. She went through a program, but she apparently has done a lot of programs over the years. And she's trying to do the whole make amends thing. And so it sounds like three and three. Three of them want to give her another shot. The other three don't. And which would be Kate, Matthew, and Frankie. So I guess with them, listen, they've been down that road before too many times. It never pans out. They're a little sick of it. Sophia winds up coming downstairs and she's telling Sophia, "Oh, I'm your abuela. Like, give me a hug," and trying to do all this. And Sophia just kind of looked at her a little crazy, like, "Oh no, you." And the mom's trying to force her to hug her and stuff, which I didn't like because it's like the baby don't know you, and she doesn't know you because of you. So I'm trying to force people to like do that. I would be annoyed. And all she told her, Frankie was like, "I don't make her hug people if she don't want to do it." Point blank, period. So the mom is aggy to me already. I don't know if she's really changed or if this is just another setup. I don't know. I just, I think that mom's a mess. I don't trust her. She says she's a clerk, but what she had her nails done and stuff, based on what she would be making and where she got her place, it's like you shouldn't even have no money for that. So I don't know. I just think something's off with her. Don't trust. I could be so wrong. She gets to the restaurant. She overhears him on the phone. He's outside pacing back and forth, and he's having a conversation saying that he hasn't been in my life all this time. I don't really care what they want at this time. And he screams, fuck, and hangs up. And she's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "How much did you hear?" And she's like, "Not that much. I was just here a few moments." He's like, "Let's go inside." Doesn't say anything else, right? So they sit down. He asks her, "So who's this Adam bloke?" And she's thinking, really? First I get cornered by my mom, now him. So the waiter comes over and he tells the waiter they're going to do the testing menu, which is like 6 courses. But it's like 150 something bucks a person or whatever. And she's looking at something that was like 20 bucks. And he's like, "I got it. And she has this money thing in her head, right? It's like, "I take care of your daughter, X, Y, and Z." Because he kind of made it seem like I can afford a little measly X, Y, and Z. But to her, it was this big deal. But it's like, okay, understandable, but he invited you to dinner. It's not like you're coming out and you're trying to order an abundant amount of food because you've been asked on a date, right? That's not what's happening. He invited you out. He wants to do the testing menu. He's not like that's not a big deal. It to me it's only a little shisty when you do something like that and let's say he ordered something small and you go, "Oh, I want the tasting menu." Then I'm a little like what are your intentions? But he invited you out and he said, he's the chef. He's the restaurateur. This is his domain. This is his whole domain. Like he invited you out to dinner to talk about the situation with the kid. Do you really think this man gonna ask you for some money, bitch? He knows you're a teacher. He know you ain't got no money like that. He knows. So that was just her again thinking about the differences between the two and allowing them to make her feel some type of way and react in some type of way. That's all it was. That's it. The waiter leaves. She tells him when it comes to Adam, it's nothing like that. He's just a co-worker. And she tells him how he says he went to school with you at Eton, and then the waiter comes back with the food. They talked, and she didn't like the caviar, but the other stuff, it was like there was like some tofu foie gras that actually did taste amazing. She's like, I'd eat this every day. This is like the best thing I've ever had in my life. And of course, he says I can make it better. And they got into him talking about how he wants to dominate New York and all this type of stuff. And so he says that the chef for this restaurant is the one that already has a Michelin star, which is why he's trying to poach him. It's like this man. So they have a conversation, eat food. She's got plenty of to-go boxes, and he wants to know, like when she first was born, and she told him it got graphic. She told him what happened. She woke up severe pain, blood everywhere. Thought she was gonna lose the baby. Showed him pictures of the baby when she was in the hospital. How small she was. She was like 2 pounds. And he felt like he should have been there. And she says, her family was there, but it's not their kid. All she cared about was the child's survival, and the family cared about her. And she described living at Nana's house and all this type of stuff. And she's like, I've done everything I could to provide her with a good life, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, can I see it? And I also forgot to mention that he did make a statement that, it probably won't be a good idea for them to be sleeping together considering the situation now. And that stung her a little bit because, again, she's crazy about him. She's all about him. So they go back to her place that she shares with Matthew, and she tells him about, how the tenant lives on the bottom floor, blah, blah, blah. He looked around. She showed him, where the baby has her own room. Frankie doesn't really have a bedroom. She's got like this little section in a closet, but it's enough for her. It's enough to fit a twin size bed. She's got a TV. She's fine. Her only concern was that her daughter was good. And he's like, how do you entertain gentlemen friends? And she says she doesn't. She doesn't really have time for it. We find out she hasn't screwed anybody. She's gone on a couple dates, some heavy petting, but she's never screwed anybody since him. He asked her if she remembered their last kiss, and she, of course, does. He got up close to her, and she had to back up because she's like, we're not going to do this. You just said that. And then she said this week you can meet her, but only on one condition. She doesn't want to tell the baby who he is yet. You know, she's like, I want to make sure that you'll like her, that you're gonna really be there. And she says, plus once the family gets wind of it, they're gonna be on you like white on rice, and that's gonna be a whole nother level of things. But she told him what to remember, which is you need to learn the words to your welcome for Moana. Moana is a beautiful, wonderful movie. Just want to say that it is a great movie. I see why kids love it. And she's like, if you do that, she'll love you forever. So they're gonna meet up on Friday at 3:30 after school. We get to Friday. She picks the baby up, tells her, we're going to meet someone at the park. They're going to meet her friend. And she's like, what's your friend's name? You don't normally just say a friend. Normally you say their name. And so then the baby starts naming everyone she knows. So then she says his name's Xavier. She's like, Xavier, okay. So they go to the park. He's dressed in this long coat. He gives the baby some flowers. And she's like, you said bad words. And she's like, I remember you. You were saying bad words to my mommy. And Frankie tells her he made a mistake, just like you made a mistake when she was a little klepto for a moment. She was stealing stuff from the preschool and bringing it home. And the baby's like, but I got better. She's like, yeah, and he'll get better too. And she said, okay. So then she's talking to him, and she's like, you're tall. And when he starts talking, she's like, he sounds like a prince. Mommy, like the ones you watch on TV. And she said, remember, Mommy, you said you'd marry Mr. Darcy because he talks like him. And he's just like, she was just adorable, just saying everything, just like kids do. And so, when he gave her the flowers, he said these were the type that his mom loved. And Frankie knew, like, oh, she's gonna love him forever, because she loves Disney princesses. And here he sounds like a real prince in real life. So he asked her, he's like, can you show me the park? And she's like, you're too big. Like, he's like, yeah, but I want to see the difference between the parks here and the parks in England. She's like, okay, we'll start with the swings first, and then you can push me. So 30 minutes at the park turned into 90 minutes. 90 minutes turned into Sophia saying, come to our house for dinner. So now she's got to figure out what to make dinner for this like world-class chef. She goes upstairs, changes, and she winds up putting on this red crop sweater, which is the same thing she was wearing when they met all those years ago at this little bar near Columbia University. So they get in the kitchen. She was gonna make spaghetti, but Sophia was like, we just had that yesterday. You always make that." So then Xavier was like, let me take over, right? So he takes out a bunch of stuff, and the baby is just fascinated by it. And so while he was playing with her in the room, like she had put a pink boa on him, he had to finally take it off, but he kept it on at first. And so finally he finishes, and at first the baby's like just inspecting this concoction. And then when she does taste, she said, "Oh, mommy, it's really good. You gotta try it." And then he cooks the next one for Frankie, and he leaves it too long, and he says a curse word, and the baby was too busy eating her food. But then after dinner, there was a knock on the door, and she goes, and Derek, who is a friend of Matthew's, who also used to date Frankie, came by, and she did dump him, and she didn't really have too much of a reason as to why. So anyway, Matthew had told him to go and check on her, and he had got a black and white cookie for Sophia. So she's like, well, she's getting ready for bed. I'll give it to her tomorrow. And then, of course, Xavier's ass is going to pop up. Derek's looking like, what the hell? She's... and she gets Xavier finally to go back. And she does something that shocks me. She told Derek the truth. She's like, listen, this is Sophia's father. He just got back into town, and we're just trying to figure things out. You know? And she's like, she doesn't know who he is, and we're just trying to ease into it. No one knows about this. I haven't told Matthew yet, so please don't say anything. And he, because she told him, my family can be a bit much. And he says, yeah, I understand. He's like, no problem. Long as you're good, but if you need me, you let me know. X, Y, and Z. So then she goes back in, and the baby's watching Daniel Tiger, and her and they're having a conversation, Sophia and Xavier, and she's saying that England isn't real based on what her mom's told her, because her mom says princesses and stuff, they're not real, so that means England's not real. And when he had pulled out money for the swear jar because Matthew already had one because he be swearing and stuff too. And when the money gets filled up, he takes her to Coney Island. So he pulls out British money and she's like, "That's not real." He's like, "Yes, it is. That's the Queen." She's like, "The Queen's not real, you know?" So they're going back and forth, and he makes a statement about how can you sit here and keep spitting this idiocy. And that's when Frankie goes, "Come here, come outside." And she explains to him, "She's a kid, you're an adult, you can't do that to her. She doesn't know everything about the world yet, she's learning. So you can't say stuff like that to her. You can't say idiots. She doesn't know. You don't want to make her feel small. That's not our role as parents, you know?" So then other people can come along and just make her feel bad about anything. Like, don't do that. So he was like, felt horrible. And he was like, "I'll apologize. You know, I messed up. You know, I'll do better, you know?" And he tells her how good of a mom she is. That she's a really good mom. And she tells him, "I mess up. I'm human. You're going to mess up. It's okay. But it's how you correct it." So then he told her he was going back to London tomorrow night, but he wanted to make them breakfast in the morning. He also wanted to take Sophia to the fish market because he wants to get to know the vendors better, you know, as well. And she's like, "She's not going to like that." He's like, "Oh, she will. I promise." She's like, "All right, but you better get us breakfast, you know? What time?" And he's like, "What time does she wake up?" And she's like, 5:30 sometimes earlier if she's had a bad dream. He said, "Okay, I'll be there." So he picks him up. And yes, you know, our girl Frankie put a little bit more effort into her attire that morning. They go to the fish market. Sure enough, the baby had a great time. He was talking to people, like telling them, you know, that he was going to open a new restaurant. Sophia saying the same thing and asking her questions when she's like, "Are these mean fish? Do these fish hurt people? Do they like princesses? Do you like princesses?" Like, and she was being so serious, and so the vendors were talking to her too. It was super cute to read. It was super cute. And so she tried, is it uni or uni, UNI, and she tried it. It's fish, which her and the baby aren't really big fans of fish. But the baby was like, "Mom, this is good." And so she had it. Sure enough, she liked it. She just didn't like the texture of it, you know? So then they go get breakfast at this place around the corner. And one of the fish guys had told him like it was really good. And when they go in there, her mom Guadalupe works there. So she's like, "Oh my gosh," and she has her arms out to hug the little girl again. Sophia's still looking wild at her, like, okay, you know. So eventually she hugs her, but then she has to tap her on the shoulder to stop, you know. So the mom looked at old boy and, you know, saw this tall drink of water. She's looking at his watch and she's like, "Oh, is that real? That's a Patek. Oh my gosh, that's oh my." Like, she was just over the moon. And she's all absorbed in by Xavier, and Xavier just kind of looking at her like, "The fuck," you know? So she sent Xavier outside with Sophia while she got the sandwiches. And she goes off on her mom. She says, "You talk all that crap about wanting to spend time with Sophia, and then you get us here, and the minute you see something else shinier, you focus in on that." And the mom was like, "Oh, I didn't realize I was doing that," all this type of shit. I just don't trust the mom. I just don't. I feel like there is something up with her, and she's just going to be a disappointment. Sometimes people do too much to a point where you just can't you can't let them back. Sometimes it happens, and I hate to say that even when it's parents. Like, people can keep forgiving to a point, and I'm gonna say forgiving because there's nothing wrong with that, but you can keep forgiving and allowing people back into your life because you can forgive people and leave them alone. It's possible, but when you keep allowing them to come back, uh, sometimes you can do more detriment to yourself. They walk to the park. They're sitting on the bench. The baby's throwing Dale bread to the ducks, having a pretty good conversation. She wanted to know why he got so jealous about Derek the previous night. And then, and had that outburst. And he said, I apologize for that. And she's like, no, I'm talking about the Derek part. Like, why were you jealous about that? And he says, um, honestly, he never really answered. He gave her like this fluff, you know? And it's just kind of like this guy, that dude, he knows my kid. He's been able to be around my kid. He knows your family, you know. Clearly, it didn't work out with you because otherwise you would have married that dude by now. For some reason, it meant, you know, he told her you must have didn't have any spark with him. So again, he didn't fully say what he just kind of turned it back on her. And she didn't feel a connection. And she basically winds up admitting that she hasn't screwed anybody in the past 5 years. Shocked the shit out of him. She wanted to know why he kissed her. Like, why did you kiss me? And he doesn't give her an answer. When she describes, why she's waited, she stated basically she just wants something that's for her, like this fire that's just for her. And she hasn't experienced that. And the truth is, she hasn't experienced it since she's been with him. That's just the truth. And she tells him that. And she's like, don't freak out. I know you're not into that. And he was like, when did I say that or some shit? And she tells him, like, listen, I know it's not that for you. I get it. But I don't know. I just feel like, he's confusing her, like kissing her, then not saying stuff. Like he is doing confusing things. Cause he did, I probably didn't say it, but he did kiss her like that night. So it's just with the back and forth, it's annoying and it's confusing. So I don't know. And in that regard, I do feel bad for her because she very much is in love with him. That's very evident, and he's doing the back and forth shit. So I don't know. But anyway, she told him she's gonna have a date this weekend, and he kind of told her, okay, I thought it would have been a lot of men anyway, and she thought he was saying it like, oh, because I'm easy. And he's like, no, because you're amazing. He's like, and you deserve a bonfire, not just a fire. You deserve that from someone. So he's telling her, like, you can find your happiness and just let me babysit. And he's like, well, it's not really babysitting because she's my kid. But he tells her, I just honestly want you to be happy. And I want to get to know my daughter. That's the important thing. And so at this point, I would just go, okay, acknowledge what I feel to myself. Okay, these are my feelings, but just no hope when it comes to a relationship with him. That's how I feel like she should deal with it. So all week, our boy Xavier's been texting her, making sure, like, okay, this is still happening. I'm still gonna keep the child while you go on your date. And it kind of irked her because it's like he's looking forward to her being with somebody else. Didn't feel that great, but anyway. So we get to maybe it was Saturday night. She's on the date at this place at that Xavier recommended. Adam is in the restroom throughout the night. I'm sorry, I said that so wrong. Adam's in the restroom, and we find out that throughout the night, Xavier has been texting her and saying stuff like, are you enjoying yourself? Has he put the moves on you? Are you still eating? Are you guys going to a club afterwards? There's this great place in Williamsburg. Like, for her, it's like, what is this? And I'm like, no, clearly he's trying to keep your attention on him. That's what it is. So, and the Adam dude is weird to me anyway. And I feel like she thinks he's a nice guy, but I don't really think that someone who pretends to be a nice guy, because that's the vibe that he gives me, that he's pretending to be a nice guy. Because when she talks to him, like when she said something about her kid, oh yeah, Sophie, oh yeah, that is her name. I don't know, he gives me creepy vibes. That's just, how I feel about him. So she's not really feeling him. She started asking questions about, him, traveling so much and all this type of stuff. And he winds up asking her about Sophia's dad, and she he was like, "Oh, I didn't realize he was in the picture." And she says, "Yeah." She's like, "Please don't say anything to anyone. He's getting to know her, blah blah blah." And he's like, "Where is he from?" And she says, "He's from London. What business is he in?" And she's like, "He's a restaurateur." And he's like, "What's his last name?" And he says, "Parker." And he was like, "I went to Eton with him. He was only there for like a semester, and he looked a lot different. He was tall and gangly back then." And she, was asking questions about himself, but he's asking questions about Xavier, and it's weird. He said he was a foodie, but then he's eating tacos with no type of sauce, just very basic. So again, he's one of those, to me, says one thing, but he's really something else. And I know that seems really small, but I just feel like that's how you pick up stuff with people. Like, just pay attention to the patterns, you know? Like, I even looked at the fact that when he asked her out he's like, "I know a place that makes killer margaritas." He didn't even, well, does she like margaritas? Kind of found out she didn't even like margaritas. She likes red wine, you know? But he didn't even ask. You know? You just pay attention to little stuff like that. So it's like he's not what he appears to be. He's just not. So then she says, like, "Oh, I think I want to go home. I'm, not feeling too well. I think the fish didn't agree with me." And she tries to pay, and he's like, "No, no, 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 no. I will." So then they go back, they take a cab back to her place, and he walks her up to the door, and he's like, "I had a really great time." And she's thinking, like, is he for real? Because it didn't feel like a great time. She wasn't that engaged in the conversation at first. And then he starts leaning in for a kiss, and she like backed up, and he was like, "Oh, come on, you can at least give me a kiss." And she was like, "I can pay for the meal, if that's what this is about." And he was like, "Oh, you don't have to play hard to get." So he assumes because she's had a kid that she's easy. And he tells her, "You've been giving me the fuck me eyes all night." And she's like, "No, I haven't. And then he's like kissing on her, and it's just very uncomfortable because she's telling him, "No, I don't want to." And he's just continuing to tell her, like, he says to her, "You got to give me something." And I'm like, "What the hell? I ain't got to give you shit. She offered to pay you. So, like, what's the problem?" So then all of a sudden, Xavier opens the door, and she falls into him, and he tells the Adam dude, "Good night, her daughter needs her," and slams the door. I'm glad he did it because she wasn't comfortable. She was telling this guy no. He's not taking no for an answer. Like, I'm backing away from you. That means I don't want you, you know? So it's like she wasn't giving the response he wanted, and so he's trying to make her get. I knew he was a fucking creep. It just, the way he was doing stuff, I was like, he moving. I don't like how he move. Ugh. She, of course, does the whole, "Why did you do that?" He was like, "Because I saw what he was doing." Oh boy, Xavier been listening at the door and watching through the peephole. So he's like, "I saw where you told him no," and hell, he kept going. And she's like, "What? You're looking through my peephole?" And he's like, "Yes, I sure was." And he said something to her about how, he had been imagining how her night had been going, like, the whole time. Basically, he'd been sitting there kind of torturing himself. And she was like, "You're the one that picked out the outfit. You were okay with me going. Like, you wanted me to go." And he was saying how, like, with him picking out the outfit, he's like, that was my only way of seeing you in something sexy. And he's like, I'm trying not to be selfish. I'm trying not to make a mess of things. But it, I don't know. I think you got to admit you're crazy about her. And he's still not admitting to that. Because when he made a comment about her playing dress up, she took it as that feeling that I don't belong and I'm just a frumpy looking thing. That's who I am and I'm nobody. And she goes in the bathroom and she cries. He, bangs on the door for her to come out. And he's like, please just come. Not bang on the door because he wasn't trying to wake up the baby. But he's like, just come out. And he finally, gets her to admit what made her cry. And he tells her, you are the most perfect, beautiful, sexy woman I have ever seen in my life. And he's like, when I see you, when I first saw you, when I picked you up, outside of Sophia's school, like every time I see you, you look perfect to me, you know? And that set it off on it. They go to kissing, and she had put on a pot of tea. The water was boiling. No, he had put on a pot of tea, I think. The water was boiling. He had to take it off because that was it. And so they go at it on the counter. He eats her cooch, and then they have a nice hard fuck. They have a condom this time, and he was saying really erotic stuff to her. He's like, "Look at me when you come," and all this type of stuff. So they had this crazy. It was intimate, like outside of just the sex. It felt very intimate. They do it a couple of more times. Now they're just butt naked on the couch, and there's this calmness that they have after sex. It's almost like a meditation state that they're in afterwards. And it was this way 5 years ago as well. And she misses having that. And so they are having some conversation, and he lets her know. He says, you made the right decision in not telling me. He was like, I don't know if I would have made the right decision back then. And he says, keeping it away from your family, are they really that bad? And basically she's like, yeah, they really are. But I don't know. My thing is, how can they get mad at him when he didn't know about her? Like, you can feel some type of way and say, okay, that was grimy. You had a fiance and you was over here X, Y, and Z, and even though because they don't know that it wasn't a real relationship, I can get them feeling salty like that. But anything in regards to that kid, you can't get mad at him because he did not know, because she didn't tell him. He winds up asking her, like, how do you deal with this feeling? Like, he describes it as this constant state of terror. He's like, I'm terrified. And she says that's parenthood. You know, she's like, she's been that way since the child was born. And so the decision, they're still not going to tell the child who he is because they know if they tell the child, she's going to tell the family. Like, that's just going to happen. But I kind of feel like I'm quite sure that baby already talking about him. Because that baby talks. Like, she spills tea quickly. So, but, that's what they decide. They also make the decision that they probably shouldn't keep, fucking with each other. This has got to stop because it's confusing her, and it's probably confusing him too. So the focus has got to be on a little girl, and then anything else after, it can come after that. So we switch to Xavier's POV. He's back in London. We fast forward about 4 months, and a few things have happened. So he's opened the restaurant in New York is about to open. It's called Shie, Shie, which means wisdom in Japanese. because Sophia means wisdom, I think in Italian. So this is his way of naming the restaurant after the baby. So Jagger's sitting there and he's just like, you know, he was kind of upset because he's like, it's been 4 months and the baby still doesn't know that you're her dad. Like, what's you know? And so he's explaining to Jagger like, I don't want to do anything to mess her head up, you know. So Jagger's like, okay, well, what about Paris? You know, is that going to be the next restaurant? So then he starts talking Xavier about places along the eastern coast. He's going, I was thinking maybe Boston, then Philadelphia. So he's like, you know, American people have money, they like food. So he's like, I think we need to set up an office in New York. So Jagger's looking around his place and he goes, I wish you would have told me that you were going to move. Like, I would have helped you. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm not moving. He's like, it looks like it. You got a bunch of boxes. It looks like you're moving. And it's going to probably, it could be an issue with the board, right? Because the business plan that was approved was for them to go to Prague and these different places. And he's completely changing it. So, I mean, I think he owns it. I don't know. But if it's there's a board, that means there's got to be a vote. So, I don't know how that's going to work. But at this point, like he just says what it is. He loves his kid, and he comes into town every couple of weeks. He's flying back and forth, and he's gonna pick her up from preschool. Well, let me describe what's happening. So that's kind of the routine now. So when he comes into town, he picks her up from preschool. They do something together, and then all three of them have dinner, and then Frankie takes her home because Matthew's back, and they're still again keeping it from everybody. You know, there's a knock on the door, and it's someone delivering probably what's considered a priceless clock. It comes from the estate. His uncle Henry has sent it and basically is saying like, okay, yeah, you need to. He put a little note where he says, you need to come and take care of this estate. Like, you're the next duke in line. He doesn't want to deal with this stuff anymore. And he apparently is going to be going to Scotland to do some hunting. And he's like, you need to do something. This can't keep falling on me. You need to take your place before the vultures descend. Who the vultures are, we don't know. Should be interesting to find out. So he packs the clock back up and tells the guy, take it. I don't want it. Take it. And he's got a flight to leave out for New York at 7 o'clock that evening. And he just kind of tells Jack, finish up what you got because I got to pack. So we switch back to Frankie. And she's come to the realization that it's time to tell the baby who he is and to tell the family. And she realizes that all this fear wasn't about Sophia, it was about her. And so, you know, I don't know. Again, it was I knew I was like it's more about her than it is about the kid because the child took to him like that. So, I didn't think it was that. I still can understand you want to hold off and wait on telling her just because you don't know what he's going to do. But, hey. So, Matthew, her brother, aka Maddie, him and Nina, they are back together. Um, Nina's the type of woman, she look, again, epitome of sophistication is what she looks like. And Matthew is happier. So it's like she can't deny that her brother loves this woman. And she says the way the woman looks at him, she looks at Matthew like she loves him. I don't know why she's still married. So again, hopefully we'll get a little bit more information on that. But Matt is going to up the ante, honey. He is inviting Nina to church. This is a huge deal in their family. Like, this is major step because everyone's there. Nona, all of his siblings, nieces, and everyone's there. So this is a big deal. And because he's been so preoccupied with his life, he's not concentrating on what she's got going on, which is why she's been able to have this whole situation going on with Xavier, spending time with the kid because his concentration, Matthew's, is somewhere else. So they go to church, and then afterwards, it was just kind of like the sisters just attacked. She was just kind of standing back watching. And the grandmother, the known, she's just sitting back just watching them do it. And they were just like going off about how, you know, everything he went through. And we come to find out he wasn't just on administrative leave, he got fired. And that was information the other siblings didn't know, but Frankie knew, and she winds up saying it. And it almost felt like they didn't pressure her, but she kind of felt compelled when she heard all of the things that they were listing about the situation with her still being married and stuff like that. And so he Nina took her hand, and they saw where, oh shoot, like that's a ring. So he already done put a ring on her finger. Like, she's still married, and he's already asked her to marry him. So yeah, it's a whole thing. So Matthew takes her hand and leaves. He looks so defeated after the girls like went in on him. And when they're in the back, they run into Matthew's ex girlfriend, who she was cheating on him when he was deployed to Iraq, and he actually really loved this girl, and she just cheated on him left and right. And so they watched as Nina ripped into this girl because the girl tried to come for Nina, and Nina let her know, like, first of all, you were the one that had this man, this wonderful man, and you cheated on him, and you kept doing it. And she just went off. And like everyone's looking at her like, oh shoot. And Frankie's thinking, okay, I see why he is crazy about her. Oh, she don't take no bullshit. And that was enough for the grandmother to kind of be like, okay, all right, she ain't too bad. They're just kind of watching her like, okay. And so, I mean, they love each other. It's clear. And it's like she felt some type of way, our girl Frankie, that he clearly had proposed to her, to Nina, but it was just kind of like, you keeping secrets. What are you doing? You know, it's like people need to be honest with you, but you don't have to be honest with other people. People need to respect. Like, no, stop. He tells you when he's ready. You know, he had to, I feel, he probably had to work that thing out and really be secure in what he was doing, knowing he was going to get met with a ton of aggression from y'all. But, Matthew asked the grandma, just give us a chance to talk to you, and Nina pleaded as well. And the grandmother said, yeah, I think, she's like, let's go home. I think it's, we all need to have a conversation. They get back to Nana's place, and somehow the subject gets turned on to Xavier because Matthew brought it up. Because Matthew was like, oh, there was someone at the Christmas party named Xavier or something like that. And he asked Nina if she knew him, and Nina tells the story. So she says, yeah, he's in line for some type of title. I don't know if it's an earl or something. But his father named him the heir because he didn't have any other children. The dad died about 3 or 4 years ago. And this whole time, Frankie's about to spaz out because she's like, she didn't know any of this stuff. And so eventually, She leaves and calls Xavier, and he answers immediately, and she spits off all the stuff that Nina said. And he was like, I'm sorry, she was like, "You've been lying to us. I didn't even know your father died. Like, you're in line to be some Earl or something." And he said, "Actually, it's a Duke." She's like, "Are you serious?" And I don't know. Her response to me is again about her. This is about y'all agree not to screw each other anymore. The focus is the kid. This is stuff he's still dealing with. He will talk to you when he can talk to you about it. Like I don't see where this is some awful thing for him not to talk to her about. I just don't see it. If you all see this, let me know. But at this point, I'm like, it's not even fully figured out on his end for him to talk about it. So you need to stop. And she's just, ranting raving about how, you've been around us for 4 months and you haven't been telling us the truth. And he was like, "It's more to the story. I'll explain you everything tomorrow." She goes, "No, it's too late. You can't explain anything anymore." And he made the comment about how, I'm going to explain it to you. You know what I mean? It's not like he's not going to tell you. But who the fuck are you to decide on the time frame when you're the same person who made the decision to withhold the information for him for so many years? That's kind of fucked up to go 5 years. I don't have to tell you something that's super important, and yet you need to tell me everything within the next couple of months. It's just no. And she started pulling out those stunts of, saying that it was too late, and this solidifies, that you can't be trusted, and, if you want to get a lawyer, so be it. Like, now you're trying to keep the kid from him. So right now, I do not like Frankie. Frankie is being selfish. Frankie is treating this as if she's been in a relationship with somebody and they didn't tell her something. That's how she's treating it. And again, this doesn't have any bearing on her. It could possibly have a bearing on the child, but that's a hell of a lot to tell a fucking kid, right? She's 4. You wouldn't tell her that shit now anyway. So, right now, Frankie ain't shit to me. I don't like her. You know, no. We fast forward a week, and Xavier's sending her flowers with different notes. It's poetry from different books. And she's like, she just can't make sense of things and all of this type of crap. And so she finally decides to go to Matthew, and we get a little backdrop. Nina's going through a divorce. It's nasty, but she's going through with it. Um, and I think that's it about them. Yeah. And he's good with her. She apparently has a child, Nina, and he's really good with that child. And it makes Frankie feel a little some type of way because she's like, we're his family. And I'm like, girl, stop. She is selfish. How much more does this man have to give to you? Like, you're his brother, okay? He's already helped you out in a lot of ways that a lot of family wouldn't, you know? But he needs to grab his own happiness. How he chooses to do it is how he chooses to do it. You gotta chill. Your daughter has a wonderful father, it appears. A really a dad that wants to be there once he was given the opportunity to be there, you know? And you up here worried about the wrong thing. Because she's also worried about the fact that, with him being with Nina, that, okay, are they going to wind up moving here? And what does that mean for her? Girl, your baby daddy can pay a decent amount to where you all can live and be okay. Not that she wants to use him or anything like that, but you'll be fine. So she's going to him, to Matthew, to try and get some information, but she's lying through her fucking teeth. She's telling Matthew, she's still telling Matthew, she wants Matthew to tell her what these notes mean, but yet she keeps saying that, oh, when it came to seeing him at Christmas, you know, the conversation, she, didn't get a chance to tell him, and, she's thinking about telling him about the kid, just all this stupid shit. Like, just total lies. And it was like, why are you lying to him? You're asking him for advice, but you lying to him and trying to make it out to be like this man hasn't been spending time with this kid all this time. It's crazy. And I think Matthew knows she's lying, but he just doesn't press it. But it's just like he told her, he's like, maybe it's time to reach out to him and tell him about, and see how he wants to proceed. And he even said something about the mom, saying how, sometimes people change. That's what I've learned in the past year, that people can change. And so that she hadn't anticipated, because Matthew's been one of the main people that's like, down with mom. So it was a shock for that response, from him. But it's just like, you need to handle your own shit. You didn't want to tell him about the situation fully, and that's fine. But then now I just don't like Frankie. Frankie is annoying. Frankie wants your business, but she don't want to tell hers. And you know what's going on. You know why he's sending you flowers. You keeping his fucking child from him now. You know what I'm saying? You know what's going on. So another week passes and he sends more flowers, and she finally agrees to meet him after school. It's on a Friday. She walks out. Adam, keep in mind, it's been like 4 or 5 months and this dude is still trying to get her to go out with him. She's avoided him for the most part, but today he caught up with her and he wants to he's like, let me take you out this weekend. I just want to apologize for how I acted. Okay, you apologize. I'm good. He was like, I had too much to drink and you just look so good. He was like, I was just beside myself. I'm like, this does not sound like a good enough excuse. It still sounds like you're a fucking creep. And she doesn't appear interested. Why are you trying to force her to be interested? This is in freaking sane. You know? So, anyway, Xavier comes up. So now him and Adam are having a pissing contest. And Xavier does remember him. They called him Lizard at back in school. They have their back and forth, and the dude eventually walks off, and that's that. But I just don't like that he keeps bothering her. Even though I don't like her, I don't like that he keeps bothering her. That's annoying. You know? Like, she's not showing you that she's interested. She's avoiding you. She's not trying to be around you. Clearly, she's not into you. But you're still trying to get her to go out with you. It's insane. But anyway, so they leave and she goes off with Xavier. So she goes into the whole, these last few months we begin getting to know each other, and you kept all this info, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, and you kept her away from me for 4 years. And I was like, yes, get her, And she was like, she was trying to act like it wasn't a big deal. And it's like, no, that is a big deal. Him not telling you about a dukeship or dukemanship, however you would say it, like, that's not a big deal, you know? He does tell her the story, which is basically what the dad did, okay? After his mom died, like, the dad made him feel like he wanted him there, okay? And we know he needed an heir. the estate basically was running out of money that he didn't know. And the reason he was pushing for him to be with Lucy, we find out Lucy had a title, but Lucy had nasty money, right? And the dad had been borrowing money from Lucy's family's estate because, he was friends with the dad. He'd been doing that to keep it afloat. And so the dad really didn't want him. He was just using him, you know? So here he was thinking he had his dad in his life and it was great. And then he realizes how stupid he was because this guy didn't even want a real relationship with him. He was just using him because he was about to lose everything. And it's just kind of like, that's why he said, let me explain. You should have allowed him to explain. Because there was more stuff going on with that, you know? So she goes, I understand why you didn't tell me. She's like, but I still need some time. And he's like, no, there's no more time. He's like, I already went 4 years, really, or 5 years, because that's since she, found out. So he's like, I've already gone. That's not going anymore. I'm not going any more time without my kid. That is not happening. And she goes, well, if you're serious, then you can, come to uh, church because the baby had asked for um, if they could have Xavier come one day, and she had said, yeah. So he goes, we'll go to church, and then afterwards we'll tell Sophia and the family. And he said, Sunday, I will be there. So he missed going to the service because there was an emergency at the restaurant, but he was finally able to get to Nona's house. But Sophia was playing at the park. So they decided they'll just go in and they'll tell the siblings and Nona first. So when they go in, Matthew gets up and Matthew winds up punching him in the face. Xavier's ready to wild out, like get him, but he didn't. And all of the siblings, the younger ones especially, were like, dang, like we didn't expect him to look like, what's the model's name? David Gandy. I'm gonna insert a picture of him. Yeah, this man is fine. If he looks like this, or something, if it was something similar to this, oh my gosh. Okay. So anyway, Matthew uh is like, you did all this, you had a, you didn't take care of your kid, like all this crap. And I'm like, did they forget or did she not tell them he didn't know about the kid? You know? Then it all comes out about how, you know, he has been getting to know the baby for all these months. And Matthew looks so hurt. Because he's like under my nose the whole time. He had no idea. But that's Frankie's fault. Frankie chose to do that and there was no need to do it. So then while they're talking, he was telling them how, um, he lives in London. So Matthew was like, what are you going to do? Are you just going to break their hearts again? Or her heart and the baby's heart? And he was like, no. He's like, my focus is my daughter. That's why I'm moving operations to New York to set up, restaurants along the East Coast. And I'm calling, the first one's called She, which means wisdom. And Nona was like, that's what Sophia's mean, which is, that's my name too. He's like, I know, that's why I did it, because she's the reason I'm here. So he's like, it's for my daughter. And he's doing this whole speech, and Sophia walks in and goes, you're my dad? And so he goes over to her, gets down to her level, and he says, yeah, sweetie. He said, I'm your father. And I'm not going anywhere, blah, 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 this whole speech. That baby was so happy. She just wrapped her arms around him and she said, I knew it. I wanted it. I prayed for it. I wanted you to be my dad. She was so happy and everybody was crying. Everybody had tears. And so he told the baby he loved her. It was just absolutely beautiful to read that. So they get to opening night because he had invited them to opening night. So we send a limo for everyone. They get all dressed up. She put on the same red dress that she had the night that she saw him back in Christmas, that party. So she looked great. They get to the event. Sophia, Francesca, Nina, and Matthew, they're going to go around back. Nina and Matthew, because she's already in this high profile divorce, she don't want no more press. Sophia she was a little scared with all those people out there because this is a huge deal. And so they go out back. Well, they go around back to come in. She goes in. She's looking at the colors of the place. These are the colors of Sophia's room. And she looks at the menu, and it's got a flower that clearly Sophia had drawn, and he put it over the kid section, and everything in the kid section has the Sophia name in it. And so she looked at it like, oh my God, this is like a love letter to his daughter. This is beautiful, you know? And Kate had came up to her and told her, have fun tonight. I will keep the baby. So if y'all want to, or with whomever, you can. But dance, have yourself a good time. So guess who pops up? Freaking Adam. He scored himself an invite through his dad. And he's back on that. Oh, will you dance with me? Oh, you want to have a drink? And she's saying, no, not right now. He just keeps pressing. And I'm like, this is so not good. So Xavier's like holding the baby, laughing with her. And then when he looks and sees Adam, he just like looked like he could kill. Like he could purely kill. So she goes, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here. So she leaves out, and she's like, I just need to read a good book, drink some tea, and just sort out my feelings. So she leaves. She gets the hell out of there. She goes to a bookstore and then eventually comes home and just chills out because she's got all these feelings about not feeling needed anymore. And, you know, she has this father now, and it's just all these feelings. So there's bamming on the door. It's freaking Xavier. She's like, what are you doing here? He's like, I've been calling you. I've been looking for you. Like, why did you leave? And then all the insecurities come out. And again, she's afraid she's not going to be needed anymore. They have this relationship, him and Sophia, and she's happy about it. But eventually, he's going to want to sweep her off to London, and she's not going to be able to tell the baby no, you know? And so he tells her that he loves her. He's like, I love you too. He's like, I don't work without you. Like you all, we revolve around you, you know? And she's like, tell me you're serious. Like, don't play with me, basically. And he told her, you know, he's never felt anything like this for anybody. You know, he loves her. So they go inside. He eats her cooch. They wind up doing it raw because she's on the pill and he got tested before he came um, back to the States. And he hasn't been with anyone. They have their nice hard fuck. And then afterwards, they do the whole I love you thing. He tells her, again, he just does not work without her. It just doesn't. So the next morning, they wake up. They have a nice little sweet moment with each other. And she gets up to make some tea, and she gets an alert on her phone, and it says $200,000 deposit made to her account. And she's like, what the heck? And he's like, oh, I figured you already saw it, and he's like, I figured I owe you for child support, to help with the child. He's like, I know it's more than that, but I figured I'd at least give you that now. He's like, besides, you and her need a place to stay outside of this. Like, I'm thankful that your brother's been here for you, but he's like, I can't sleep in that bed again. He's like, I couldn't feel my feet this morning. And then he asked her if she would be open to staying together in New York. And she, of course, is thinking, how would that work? Thinking bills and all that type of stuff. She doesn't want to be a kept woman. And so he gets a call, goes outside, comes back in, looks pale. We find out what's happened. So his uncle Henry is missing. He went to Scotland a week for hunting, but no one's heard from him. And there's no one there to run the estate, which means he's got to do it. It falls on him. So he's got to go back. She's thinking, of course, oh my gosh, we just got him and now we're losing him. But then he shocks her when he says, will you come with me? Will you two come with me back to London? So we switch back to Xavier's POV. We fast forward a month. She's agreed to come, so he's all excited. Um, Elsie, I think that's his assistant. She's making sure everything's perfect with the baby's room. Elsie and Jagger are gonna come with him to pick them up at the airport. He could have just sent Jagger, but he wanted to be there. Here's the problem. Paparazzi has picked up. People know his uncle's missing. It's been well over a month and a half now, and it's beginning to be a problem. They get to the airport. We find out he's gotten a ring for her as well. It's custom made. He's not going to propose at the airport, though. But Jagger had pulled it out in the car because he was like, he wanted to make sure that, he picked it up for him. So, gets to the airport. He sees them. They're all happy. Here's the problem. When they leave out, Elsie had tried to deter the paparazzi. It didn't work. Jagger tried to tell him, like, we don't want to go out front, but he wasn't listening. Went out, shitstorm. People yelling his name. Is your uncle missing? Did you kill him? Who's this woman? Who's the child? Is this your love child? Is this a single mom? What's going on? I mean, bombarding. Baby starting to cry. Frankie was like, I don't know what's going on. She looks in at Xavier and he realizes, he should have forewarned them of the drama that's going on. And that's how it ends. So the next book in the series is called Then Come Lies. What did you all think? I really liked it. Okay, even though towards the end I did not like Frankie's character. She's got some redeeming to do in this next one because I don't like that she then kept him from that kid for another couple of weeks behind fuckery. It just got to me. I will say this. I am very interested in Matthew and Nina, honey. That could have been a book by itself. I need to look and see if there's a series about them because I'm trying to remember if something in the backdrop was ever so juicy. You know, like their story is juicy. I'm like, let's find out about them more. So that was good. I do understand. I get they're a close knit family, but at the same time, you gotta live your own life. You know, good, bad, or whatever. And the thing about Frankie that really got to me was that she's okay with keeping the secrets, not telling people stuff, but then she wants other people to tell her everything right now. And if they don't do it, she feels hurt. So she just irks me. So again, she's got some redeeming to do because she really pissed me off towards the end of what she was doing. It was just not cute. It just wasn't. But the story itself, I really liked it. I really liked it. I think it's a good start to the year with a really good series. But what did you all think? Did Frankie annoy you? Did Xavier annoy you? Matthew? Like, who annoyed you? Or who did you love? Or both? Let me know. Drop down in the comment section and let me know. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available. And the links are going to be available down in the description section below. Make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support. And thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.